In a conflict that's torn families apart and tested the world's resolve, the heartbreaking discovery of another hostage's remains adds a new layer of sorrow and urgency to the ongoing struggle in Gaza. But here's where it gets controversial. As both sides accuse each other of breaking promises, could this be the tipping point for peace, or just another hurdle in a cycle of blame? Dive in to uncover the details most people overlook. And you'll see why this story isn't just about one man. It's about a fragile ceasefire hanging by a thread. From Tel Aviv, Israel, comes the somber news that authorities have confirmed the identity of yet another set of remains handed over by Hamas. This time, it's Eliyahu Margalit, a 76-year-old man who was tragically abducted on October 7, 2023, during Hamas's brutal attack on Israel. Margalit was taken from the horse stables where he worked at kibbutz near Oz, a place that had been a peaceful haven until that fateful day. The identification process involved rigorous testing by Israel's National Center for Forensic Medicine, and his grieving family has now been informed. For those new to this story, understanding the background of such abductions is key. These events stem from a larger conflict where militant groups like Hamas launched surprise attacks, leading to the capture of over 250 people, many of whom remain unaccounted for. Imagine the terror of being pulled from your everyday routine, whether it's tending to animals on a kibbutz or living a quiet life, and facing an uncertain fate. This marks the 10th hostage body returned since a ceasefire agreement took effect more than a week ago. Hamas delivered an 11th body this week, but sadly it wasn't that of a hostage. The search for these remains is a grim part of the deal, spurred on by U.S. President Donald Trump's stern warning that he would permit Israel to restart military operations if Hamas fails to fulfill its commitments and return all 28 remaining hostage bodies. It's a high-stakes negotiation where lives hang in the balance, reminiscent of international mediations in other conflicts. Like the Iran nuclear taunts, where promises must be backed by action to avoid escalation. And this is the part most people miss. The Hostage Families Forum, a supportive group advocating for those abducted, expressed cautious relief at Margalit's return, noting it brings some closure to his loved ones. Yet, they vow to keep pushing until the remaining 18 hostages are brought home safely. To emphasize their determination, they'll continue organizing weekly rallies, a powerful example of grassroots activism that's kept the global spotlight on this issue. Think of it like the families in the 1985 MOVE bombing aftermath in Philadelphia, who rallied tirelessly for justice and accountability. The handover of these remains is a crucial element of the ceasefire pact, which also aims to boost aid deliveries, reopen border crossings into Gaza, and lay the groundwork for rebuilding the devastated enclave. Supported by much of the international community, this agreement seeks to halt 2 years of relentless warfare that has left Gaza in ruins. Hamas affirms its dedication to the deal, including delivering bodies, but the task is fraught with challenges. The sheer scale of destruction, piles of rubble and collapsed buildings, makes recovery difficult, and unexploded ordnance poses severe dangers to search teams. For beginners, picturing this is like trying to find buried treasures in a war zone. Every step could trigger an explosion, delaying progress and risking lives. Compounding this, Hamas claims some bodies are in zones under Israeli military control, adding layers of complexity to the retrieval process. Interestingly, Margalit's remains were uncovered after bulldozers dug up earthen pits in Khan Yunis, a city in Gaza that's seen heavy fighting. In a reciprocal gesture under the ceasefire, Israel returned 15 Palestinian bodies to Gaza on the same day. The International Committee of the Red Cross handled the handover to Nasser Hospital, bringing the total number of returned Palestinian bodies to 135. This exchange highlights the agreement's emphasis on mutual respect for the deceased, a small but vital step toward healing in divided societies. But here's where it gets controversial. While the ceasefire aims for calm, accusations of violations are flying. Hamas alleges that Israel is persisting with attacks, breaching the terms. For instance, on Friday, Gaza's Civil Defense, a first responders group under Hamas's Interior Ministry, reported that 9 people, including women and children, died when their vehicle was struck by Israeli fire in Gaza City. They claim the car inadvertently entered an Israeli-controlled zone in eastern Gaza, and argue that Israel could have issued non-lethal warnings. The bodies were recovered on Saturday with UN coordination. Israel's military, however, paints a different picture. They spotted a suspicious vehicle crossing a designated boundary line and approaching troops. After firing warning shots that were ignored, they acted to neutralize what they saw as an imminent threat, in line with ceasefire protocols. This clash of narratives raises eyebrows. Does Israel's action reflect necessary self-defense, or is it an overreach that undermines trust? It's a debate that echoes controversies in other global hotspots, like the Syrian civil war, where lines between defense and aggression blur. During the first ceasefire phase, Israel retains control over roughly half of Gaza, a provision that sparked differing views on sovereignty and security. Meanwhile, Hamas is pressing mediators to ramp up humanitarian aid, speed up the reopening of the Rafah crossing with Egypt, and kickstart reconstruction in the war-torn area. Aid flows are still bottlenecked by closed crossings and limitations on aid organizations, hampering relief efforts. United Nations data from Friday indicated that only 339 trucks have entered Gaza for distribution since the ceasefire began a week ago. Far short of the agreed-upon 600 daily, Israel's Kogat, the body managing aid, reported 950 trucks crossing on Thursday and 716 on Wednesday, including commercial and bilateral shipments. These figures show progress, but for Gaza's over 2 million residents, many displaced and desperate, the wait is agonizing. Throughout the conflict, Israel has restricted aid, sometimes completely, leading to dire shortages. The situation has escalated to the point where famine was declared in Gaza City, and the UN has confirmed over 400 deaths linked to malnutrition, including more than 100 children. These statistics paint a grim picture of human suffering, where basic needs like food and water become matters of life and death. Think of historical parallels like the Bengal famine of 1943, where millions perished due to blockades and neglect. Israel contends it has allowed sufficient food supplies, accusing Hamas of diverting aid for its own purposes. However, the UN and other agencies firmly reject this claim, highlighting a major point of contention. Israel's military campaign in Gaza has reportedly claimed nearly 68,000 Palestinian lives, according to Gaza's health ministry, which operates under Hamas. Independent experts and UN bodies consider these numbers a credible indicator of the toll. Israel disputes them without offering alternative figures, leaving a void in accountability. Additionally, thousands of Palestinians are reported missing by the Red Cross, underscoring the immense scale of loss. As we wrap up this intricate web of tragedy and diplomacy, it's clear this ceasefire is a fragile bridge over turbulent waters. But what do you think? Does Hamas's struggle with body retrieval justify delays, or is Israel right to demand swift compliance? Should the international community prioritize aid over military control in Gaza? And most provocatively, could accusations of ceasefire breaches on both sides signal a deeper mistrust that dooms any hope for lasting peace? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you side with one narrative, or see shades of gray in this ongoing conflict? Your voice could spark the discussion. We all need to understand this better. Nagdi reported from Cairo, Egypt. Follow AP's war coverage at https:/apnews.com/hub/Israel/Hamas war.